Hey guys, what's happening? Welcome to Snacks Thought, and today I want to talk about a subject called Know Your Brand. Know your brand. When it comes to a brand, this is just Snacks' definition. A brand is a unique design of a product, goods, or services. So, a good example of a unique design of a product's goods or services. Let's use toothpaste for instance. You have different brands of toothpaste. It's all toothpaste, which is it's the same item, but it's made different. May have a different taste, or there's subtle differences. Some brands of toothpaste that you have are Colgate. You have Crest, you have Arm& Hammer, and then you have could even have, for those of you that love the discount, if you go to 99-cent store, you might be able to find you some Close Up, or probably No Frills, or Great Value. But each one is unique in their design. They're not the same, even though they are the same item. And when I talk about knowing your brand, I would say for a person, that might be a particular style. No two people are the same, and we all have a unique way of doing things. But when it comes to knowing your brand, you can have artists. Now, you may have 10 artists, but each one is uniquely different. They are each going to have different ideas, a different thought process, and their vision, or what they see and what they want to manifest, is going to be totally different. Even though it can be the same thing, it's going to be different. So they have a particular brand or their own unique design. And the reason why I say know your brand is this is something that I've learned over time. But knowing your brand means that you got to know yourself first. So you have to know, okay, what is it, that I do well, and say if you're going into a certain market, okay, your particular style of what you create. And granted, you more than likely, if it's something that's good, normally there are other people with the same idea, but you each will have your own spin or twist on it. Knowing your brand is, I'll make it personal. What is my style? What is it? If I'm going into a certain market where there are hundreds of thousands of people, it honestly really doesn't matter what these other individuals do, because even though we're in the same market, and let's assume that we're competitors, there's nobody else like me, and there's nobody else like you. So we all do things differently, and once you know your brand or your style, then what that does, that reduces the anxiety of wanting to copycat someone else. When you know your brand, you know exactly what you uniquely create, what you're capable of, how you do it, what you do. And once you know your brand, that's intellectual property. So you want to make sure, if you become branded on whatever it is that you do, make sure you own it. It's called owning yourself. Intellectual property. But what I call it thought-provoking. What inspired this train of thought for me is that I came off of a trip from Africa probably about 3 weeks. It's going about a month now. And when you go into different markets, or especially even different countries, you may run out of a particular item. It could be deodorant, anything, And when you go into a foreign country, they're going to sell the brands in that country or what's in that marketplace. And so I don't know if I shared in one of my podcasts about how I had forgotten, my body wash, and I have a specific brand that I like to use because that right there is what I like, and I find that it works best for me. But when I left it at one of the other hotels, I had to purchase another brand of body wash. And so, I picked up a local brand or something that was in their country. And it was good. The product was good, but it wasn't, in my opinion, it wasn't as good as my particular brand of body wash, which is Aveeno. That's just something that I happen to like. But in terms of a brand, yeah, they're both body wash, but the creator of those particular products, they have their own unique way in whatever particular ingredients that they use to produce their product, even though they both do the same thing, but they still are uniquely different. And so when it comes to branding, before anything becomes a brand or something that's established, it all begins with a thought or an idea first. And what happens is that it starts off with a thought or maybe a seed that was planted for that particular inventor. And then what happens is that a thought eventually becomes an action. So you may think of something and then you begin to formulate a plan or an idea how you're going to bring this thing into fruition. And once it actually is created, because it's a design, we're all designers original, but because it's a unique design, that right there is a brand. Now, what is the importance of knowing your brand? Well, to me, the importance of knowing your brand is that when you know your brand, there's value in that. And you have to appreciate what it is that you, one, uniquely do, two, what you uniquely produce. Nobody else can do whatever it is that you can do. So you want to make sure that you learn to value what it is that you do and what you create. Because nobody will ever value your work or your creativity more than you. We have to value it. And when something is valuable, then a price, can be attached to it. But when you know your brand, you want to make sure that you protect your brand, because your brand, in a sense, is basically your reputation or your word. And there is nothing more powerful than word of mouth. And so if you produce a product and say the product is faulty, or either maybe your style of work, how you do your work is actually a brand. And so if your work is sloppy, you're not dependable, then word is going to travel around that, hey, so-and-so, we can't depend on them. They're not reliable. And they don't exactly do good work. At best, they're mediocre. Word is going to get around, and what's going to happen, your reputation will always precede you. And what happens is that if you get a bad reputation, which that right there is a bad brand, then in the future, it can cause doors to close for you. And with a brand, that means that if it's a brand, say, in the professional world, that means that where you might have gotten promoted or whatever it is that you produce, it could have went to the next level. Now it's going to be shot down, and people are not going to buy your product or buy what you're selling, or they're not going to hire you because you have a bad reputation. So once you establish your brand, you definitely want to make sure that you protect it. So now, how do you protect your brand? There's an old adage that talks about people, places, and things. To protect your brand and make sure that it remains valuable, you have to watch the type of people that you choose to be around, the things that you allow to connect to your brand, or where you place it at. People and the places. There's just certain places where maybe your particular brand or product is not appropriate for that particular market. I'm not going to go and try and sell toothpaste at a place where they're looking to buy tires. I'm in the wrong market. So you got to find exactly your brand. Where does your brand fit? For every brand, there's definitely a place. Else, there'd be no such thing as creativity. So obviously, anything that can be created by any human being, there's always somebody out there that is that's willing to buy it. And in the case of social media, or even we could use YouTube, or even like this podcast. Everybody is not going to may not like your particular YouTube or podcast channel, but then there are others out there that are gonna love it. And once you, like I said, when you establish a brand, you want to make sure you protect it and make sure that I would say maybe that you're consistent with it. A brand is also like knowing your niche. You got to know your niche, know exactly where it is that you fit. Get in where you fit in, so that you're not all over the place. And when you establish a brand, you got to be specific, because no individual or no company can do everything. That's why you have, for instance, we'll use a car. That's why you have different people. You have certain manufacturers that they might make the frame of the car. Certain manufacturers in the auto industry, they may build the transmission. They produce transmissions. Another, may produce motors. Another may produce nuts. Another may produce bolts. But all of those things put together, in each one of those items, and they have a brand, whether they be big or small. They are branded. There's a specific type of nut. Saying there's a manufacturer that creates that. That's a brand. If it's for tires, tires are necessary on an automobile, because you can have everything else built, but without tires, what is the vehicle going to move on? Tires have a different brand. There's different manufacturers for that, and those manufacturers have a unique brand or a specific stamp, and they specifically have to protect their brand if they want to keep their customer base. And so when I say know your brand, that means know what it is, know what your style is and what it is that you're good at. And then once you find out what it is that you do well, make sure that you're consistent with it and that you protect it. Don't let anybody ruin what it is that you're really good at and what you create. Nobody will ever have more value on what you create than you will. And this is something I've learned through experience. I used to get, when I was young, I used to get really frustrated and upset on certain things. I was like, man, I thought to myself that it was a good idea, and I thought it was hot, and I appreciate it. But when I floated it out there to other people, it's like some of them, it's like they really wasn't. So it was like, yeah, okay, yeah, whatever. Some of them seem like they really could care less, because it wasn't valuable to them, because it wasn't theirs. It didn't belong to them, and they didn't have a stake in it. So there was no value to it. And I had to learn that I have to appreciate what it is that I do well, because nobody else is going to appreciate what I do more than me. If I don't value it, who else is going to value it? It's basically having respect for your unique design. If you don't respect yourself, then who else will? Who's going to respect you? If you don't believe in yourself, who else will? You have to, knowing your brand means also knowing how to value yourself. You got to know your self-worth. And you got to believe in yourself. Every invention or even say modern day creation, that inventors that came into existence. I'm quite sure there were times when they faced frustration, or when people didn't believe in them, and they still had to have the self-confidence to believe in themselves and to keep going. I mean, think about, there's a list. You can think about Albert Einstein, or let's look at even Ben Franklin. Think about it. If the person that discovered electricity, when the plans wasn't working out and they were going through, say, maybe the lean years or the rough years, when people weren't really paying them no mind and thought that maybe their ideas for the time was a bit zany or stupid or even crazy, they still had to believe in themselves and keep going. If they had quit or given up, where would our society be right now if we never learned how to harness electricity? When that person that discovered electricity and they learned how to harness it, what they bought a brand on a unique design on a product that added value to society. But if they didn't value what they were creating, who else would value it? If they don't care about it, why should anybody else? You could look at the airplane with the Wright brothers. If they had given up on their idea of man being able to fly, where would we be today? You know, if Ford and those guys had given up on creating the automobile, where would we be today in terms of transportation? We'd still be walking on foot, or either with horse and buggy carriages. All of these inventors, they had a unique brand, and they had a specific style, a concept or an idea, and they brought it into being, and they believed in it themselves, and they believed in themselves, and they never gave up. They valued what they did. And as a result, eventually they had breakthrough. They eventually broke through, because you can believe that there were definitely some failures and some lean times along the way, but they believed in their brand. And then once they established their brand, they made sure to go about protecting it. They protected their brand. So now it's established, they protected it, and now people know what they're known for. And then once they brought their unique ideas or concepts into practice, what happened is that as time went on, they themselves or others improved upon these different ideas, and look where society is today because of it. All of those individuals, they had to know their brand. They had to know what it is that they were good at, and then on top of that, they had to stick to it. So knowing your brand is definitely knowing yourself. All right, what is it that I do well? Once I figure out what I do well, all right, now, okay, now that I come up with a plan, I brought it into existence. Okay, how can I improve upon it? How can I make it better? Know your brand. And know that your brand is individually specific. There is nobody else's brand like yours. Nobody's. Of course, there will be others that some will do the same thing, but nobody can do it like you can. And when I say that, I want you to point to yourself right into your chest. Nobody else has my brand like me. Nobody else can do what I do the way I do. And I want you to believe that. You got to believe that. You got to believe that. And you got to appreciate, value what it is that you do, whatever it is that you do. And if you do something, do it to put your best foot forward. Do it to the best of your ability, because word travels. What you put out there, whatever product or whatever it is that you put out there, people may not say it, but eventually they're going to see it. When establishing a brand, be consistent. Make sure you're consistent. Don't be up one day, down the next. And if you design something, whether it's art, an invention, whatever it is, I don't care. I don't care if it's scrubbing floors or cleaning houses. If you're going to scrub floors or clean houses, make sure that make sure you're the best at it. Do the best that you can at whatever it is that you do, because it's a brand. And people will come to know you by your work and your reputation. Know your brand. But that's all I got for today, and I want to reiterate it again. A brand. What is a brand? A brand is a unique design of products, goods, and services. That's a brand. In terms of individuals, you can equate it to a brand being a specific style or unique way of doing things. Appreciate your brand and appreciate yourself and believe in yourself. This right here is Snack Thought, and I also have a YouTube channel. My YouTube channel is Eric Broadus on YouTube. That's EricBroadus. So check out my YouTube channel. I definitely deal with stuff on how to succeed in the military, travel, inspirational thought, and some things are health, nutrition, and just things about life. So please check me out. But I hope you enjoyed today's podcast. And once again, food for thought. Know your brand. Know your brand. And once you know your brand, do what it takes to protect it and appreciate it. No one will ever value your brand more than you do. That's all I got, for the day. And I'll catch you guys for the next one. Peace.